Okay, good evening friends. I welcome you all to CA Final SCM and PE regular batch. By the way, what is the full form of this? Strategic cost management and performance evaluation. See, there could be a 1 mark question, no? Objective type question, write the full form of SCM and PE. So you should at least know the name of your full name of your subject. Strategic cost management and performance evaluation. The institute has broken down that subject in two parts, in two modules. First module is strategic cost management. Second module is performance evaluation. And there is a third module also, a smaller one. Do you know? You may not be having the module with you probably. Third one is of case study. So actually institute has come out with 3 modules. First module strategic cost management, second module performance evaluation, and third one is very thin, and that is case study. Okay, so this is your subject. Let me first introduce myself a little bit before I go further. People call me CA Rakesh Agrawal, and students lovingly call by different names, right? But this is the official name, right? CA Rakesh Agrawal. I would love to be called by this name. I graduated in 1989. That is Bachelor of Commerce, right, from Neswadia College of Commerce, Pune, belonging to Pune University. I happen to be the gold medalist in the subject of cost and management accounting, because that was my special paper or special subject at BCom level. Then I did my MCom also, but that I did externally because it was not possible to do it along with the articleship. In our days, articleship used to start after graduation. Actually, CA course itself was open after graduation. It was not available after 12th in our days. In 1990, I cleared my ICWA, that is Cost and Works Accountancy, which is nowadays called as CMA, Cost and Management Accounting. The name has been changed. So we keep calling it as ICWA instead of Cost and Works Accountants, that is Cost and Management Accountant of today. I happen to be third in the local body of Pune chapter of Cost Accountants, that is the Pune local body. In 1991, sorry, not 91, in 1992, I cleared my CA final with All India rank 32. And again, I could score maximum in same subject, that is cost management, because I had to take the least efforts for that subject and I could score highest, because here also my specialization was cost and management accounting. ICWA's main core subject is cost accountancy. So here I studied lowest for the same subject and could score the highest among the other subject, which led me to AIR. This is in brief about me, and I have been teaching since 1991. I had a year written 1991 for a reason. My teaching career started, right, since 1991 on the basis of ICWA. So on the basis of cost accountancy, I had started visiting Pune chapter of Cost Accountants, that is local body, as a visiting lecturer for the same subject, costing. So on the basis of this qualification, I started my teaching career, and then my passion continued. I generally call myself as a teacher by passion and chartered accountant by profession. My father being a practicing chartered accountant, the obvious choice would have been to practice with him. That was the obvious choice. But then the love towards teaching had pulled me here, and in spite of the opposition of all the family members, friends, whatnot, right, I ran away from my native place and I landed back to Pune, and that is how I started teaching since 1991. So it's more than 28 years now I'm into this field. Might be more than your age, right? So teaching is never a burden, never a work for me. It is my passion. So I love teaching here. I love standing in the classroom. I hope you love learning the subject. Then that will be fine, right? So that will match. More about me, you will find behind the index page. Basically, in your notes, just behind the index page, I have written in detail, right? So let's not waste much time here. All other activities and achievements are written there, right? This is in brief about me. Now we move to your subject as such, right? Your subject is for 100 marks, as all of you are aware, and it is in group 2, paper number 5, right? Technically it is paper 5, falls under group 2 of CA final, right? This subject, or this your batch, I'll be calling your batch as version 3 batch. So let me first explain what exactly this is, because you may get confused by looking at this. When you'll get the copy of your printed notes in your hands, you'll find version 3 is written. So naturally a question comes in your mind, then what was version 1, what was version 2, and how this version 3 is there, and what will happen if version 4 comes in future, what should we do? It's very simple. The reason is, as we progress ahead, right, there are some more exams taking place, some new RTPs coming up, some new questions coming up on the website of the institute. So we have to get updated, and due to that we keep changing this version. So your batch will be called as version 3 because just few months back, you know, the institute has issued new module. Institute came out with the new module now. Earlier there was a single module, now it is divided in 3 parts. Module 1, 2, 3, as I earlier told you, I think. Originally when institute came out with the syllabus, there was only single module, and some minor changes they have made, updations they have made. So really speaking, there is no major change. There are some updations, past exam papers, past RTP questions are accommodated in the new module, and one module got divided into 3. So this batch is based on 3 modules. That is the latest one, which is issued by institute. Now just for clarification purpose, let me tell you. When the new syllabus was launched, if you remember, it was launched on 1st July 2017. It coincided with the date of GST, if you remember. GST was also made effective from 1st July 2017, and the institute also came out with the new syllabus. At that time, even hard copy of module was not available. At that time, I'm saying. And I had to start the batch because some students had opted for, they got converted from old to new syllabus, and their attempt was due in May 2018. Their attempt was due in May 2018, and some students switched over. So I had to conduct a batch. That batch which I conducted, the first batch, even without having physical copy of module, we had only downloaded the module from institute's website, prepared the notes, and we started teaching, and not a single exam had taken place by that time. That batch I gave the name version 1. So now you will come to know. That batch I gave the name version 1. Now later on, exam took place, May 2018 exam took place. Institute released some more case studies, questions on website because module 1 was insufficient. Module 1 was launched in haste because they had to do that. As syllabus was announced, they came out somehow with the available module, whatever they had. So later on they supplemented. There were hardly any questions in module 1. Trust me. So later on they started putting up the questions and case studies on website. So we downloaded those questions from website. One exam took place in between. One RTP came up. So then what I did, I recorded amendment batch 1. Now why I recorded amendment batch 1? Only new part. So that students who have studied in this batch, they have to only study this much. Few days batch, like 5-6 days batch, means 5-6 lectures actually. And this people, after updating themselves with amendment batch 1, were updated. So we had to take care of old students who have already done the classes or who had purchased our video lectures. So this I did first for the benefit of, for the sake of old students. Then I came out with version 2 batch. Actually speaking, version 2 batch contains where version 1 plus amendment batch 1. Simple. So I merged these questions and contains at respective places in the respective chapters of version 1, revised the study material and called it version 2. So the students who already did it, they had to do these two. They are updated with version 2, and then I conducted a new batch, version 2, later on. Now, as I said, I think in January, February, the new module was launched, right? Some new questions got added. Some more exam took place in between. So for version 2 batch students, what I had to do? I had to record amendment batch 2. So amendment batch 2 covers all new questions given in the new module, and the past examination questions and RTPs were covered by me only in amendment batch 2. It was a 5 lecture batch. In 5 lecture I could cover that of 3 hours each. So version 2 students, after studying amendment batch 2, are again updated. And now naturally you will come to know what I am going to say, why your batch is version 3. So your batch version 3 is nothing but version 2 batch plus amendment batch 2. The contents of these two batches are now clubbed into one. Again, at respective chapters I have placed those questions and updated the entire study material. And therefore your batch is called version 3. So you be rest assured, even though you are joining today, by the time your exam takes place, some people may have exam 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 2.5 years down the line. But generally this subject is joined in the beginning of your CA final coaching, because this subject doesn't require much changes. So generally people do this costing, FR, these type of subjects earlier, law related and tax related subjects later. So naturally one doubt always comes in your mind that by the time we appear for the exam, what will happen, how we will get updated. So by that time probably I will have amendment batch 3. You don't have to worry, you don't have to study everything again, just study that much, amendment batch 3, it will be over. So you don't have to worry about changes. And please remember, technically speaking, it is not amendment batch. This subject doesn't have amendments, but students lovingly call this as amendment batch, therefore I kept it a name. Amendment batches are good for direct tax, indirect tax like subjects. So technically there is no amendment, be rest assured, don't go by the name, it is only extra questions or updations. It's no amendment, nothing has changed. The basic structure remains same, basic theory questions remain same. It is only additional questions coming from RTPs, new modules and exams which are getting conducted in between. Really speaking, no amendment. So you can be updated from institute's website also. Plus I have made a habit that once institute's literature comes in, suggested answer comes in, I study it in detail. I develop my own answer, I compare with institute's answer. Sometimes my opinion doesn't match with institute's opinion, it happens, alright, because in this subject there are a lot of chances of opinions or interpretations also in this subject also. So I develop my own answer after looking at their answer, after comparing my answer with their answer and whatever is best. Sometimes I make an error, sometimes I feel institute's literature has an error. So I try to find out the golden mean. If I differ from institute's opinion, I generally write a note that ICI opinion was this, my opinion is this. And then I come out with my own literature about this amendment batches and I upload it on my website. My website address is everywhere printed on every page of your notes, which goes by my name itself. This is www.ca.Rakesh.Agrawal. It is .in, not .com. By mistake, if you type .com, it goes to some other site. It's a practicing CA firm's site. So ca.Rakesh.Agrawal.in is the name of the website, and it is printed on almost every page of your printed notes. Don't worry. On this website, if you go, there is a tab called Student Corner. There's a tab called Student Corner. Once you go to Student Corner, you will find these updations. So in future, you can download free of cost those amendment batch copies of printed notes in PDF format. Absolutely no problem. So this service will be available. You can go and later on check for yourself whether what I am saying is right or wrong. You will find amendment batch 1, amendment batch 2, everything you will find there. in the student corner. Clear? So this will solve your doubt what to do in future, right? I'll be updating everything. So this is, here we are, right? Latest updated batch with whatever RTPs are issued so far, and future arrangement will be done with future amendment batches. With this, now I take you to the subject. Let us first go to the coverage, right? I'll rub this off. Only one request, whenever you in future you ask me the query related to subject, you have to code this version 3, because the page number and question numbers change. Suppose you are asking a question, because nowadays many students study through these video lectures. So they say, sir, there is a problem in question number 29. Now question number 29, which chapter? Point number 1. I mean, this is the way communication is now done nowadays. I'm very much worried about it. It's not an effective communication. A student says there is a problem in question 29 which I am unable to understand. First of all, he doesn't mention what type of problem. There's a problem in question 29. Now I have to understand what is going on in the mind of student. Problem number 29 of intermediate costing or intermediate FM, that also I teach, or final costing. Any final costing version 1, version 2, version 3. And question number 29 of which chapter, which page. Nobody bothers to mention all this, and that's a truth. More than 95% cases, I'm saying, this type of query comes. More than 95% cases, barring 5% students who write exactly everything. How I should go and see which question actually it is and what problem we are facing? So this effective communication is lacking, and I think as a chartered accountant, we should be very good in communication. Let it be written, let it be verbal. So communication should be good. In one communication, I should understand what exactly your problem is so that I can answer. 3-4 communication, email communication goes in first understanding what exactly the student wants. This is generally my experience. And now this experience is getting enhanced day by day because of this video lectures. Because students are sitting at different locations in all parts of the country. And then they ask the question. So please be careful to write version 3 and final SCMP. Okay. Now, I have divided for classroom discussion purpose the entire syllabus in 3 volumes. I have also done. So you'll be getting 3 volumes, let me tell you. These are those 3 volumes which you'll be getting. These are spiral binded notes, black and white. Spiral binded black and white notes. This is volume 1. This is volume 2. I'll explain what it contains. What are the contents? And this is volume 3. So you'll be getting those 3 volumes, 1, 2 and 3. Now what volume 1 contains? I'm just writing the name of chapters. First one, Introduction to Strategic Cost Management. This one, Introduction to Strategic Cost Management. Number 2, Modern Business Environment. Third, Lean System and Innovation. Right. You should come to know the name of chapters at least, isn't it? First, name of the subject, right? Few of you could tell me the full form of the subject, full name of the subject. Now the contents inside. Then we'll have to go one by one in each chapter. So third was Lean System and Innovation. Fourth is Cost Management Techniques. Fifth chapter is Cost Management for Specific Sectors. Cost Management for Specific Sectors. Sixth is Decision Making. Seventh is Pricing Strategies and Decisions, or let us say Pricing Decisions. This is what I'll be covering in volume 1. Volume 1 notes covers this, which is your syllabus. Volume 2, volume 2, chapter number 8, performance. Now we are here, performance evaluations. It is performance measurement. This is performance measurement and evaluation. 9th is divisional transfer pricing. 10th chapter is strategic analysis of operating income. 11th is budgetary control. 12th is standard costing. This is indirectly your syllabus also. Now, if you refer the module, this 13th chapter. Chapter number 13th in module, not in my notes. It is there in the module and not in the notes. How come? Don't worry. Case study. Right. Institutes module 1 is this. Module 2 is this. Institutes. Module 3 is this. A thinner one. Few pages. Now, what I am giving you third module is not this. So let me explain a little bit. First of all, I have not changed the sequence. The sequence in the notes, my printed notes, is exactly the same sequence which is there in the module, Institutes module. So I have not changed the sequence of chapters so that it is easy for you to compare. However, my teaching sequence will be different, which I'll come little later. Now, where this chapter has gone? Actually, case studies are based on chapter 1 to 12. Case studies is not a separate chapter as such, though it is a separate chapter in module. But really speaking, case study may be from this chapter, maybe from this chapter, maybe from this chapter, maybe from this chapter. So what I did, I have put up the case studies under the respective chapters. Because if I come to case study later on, chapter 1, 2, 3 has been discussed already. And you know we follow FIFO method of learning, right? First in, first out. So by the time you lose the connection, what we had discussed here, and the case study is based on chapter 1. So for better understanding, I have included case studies at the respective chapters at the respective places. So in my printed notes, you will not find this chapter, but you will find all the case studies grouped under respective chapter. This is just to avoid confusion where this chapter has gone. It has gone nowhere. On the contrary, chapter 13 has gone to the respective places for logical understanding. So in the notes I have 12 chapters. This is volume 1. This is volume 2. Now I said I am going to give you third volume also. My third volume is different from Institute. My volume 3 is actually practice manual. You call it as PM generally. You must be aware under new syllabus, Institute has stopped issuing practice manual. It was there under the old syllabus, which was good. But nowadays they don't have practice manual. I have prepared for you. So let me tell you what it is and why it has come up. Especially those version 2 students. You are not version 2 students, you are version 3. But then version 2 students will say we were issued only 2 modules or 2 notes, volume 1 and 2. These students will be getting 3 volumes. So there is injustice. There is no injustice. Actually what happened? In earlier version 2, I had grouped the homework questions for your practice at also respective chapters. But now after this amendment batch 2 getting added, the size of these books or notes became too bulky for you to carry. So the number of pages were getting too heavier. What I did, I splitted it, and all homework questions I have shifted from respective chapters to practice manual, that is volume number 3. So all homework questions I have migrated to this. And in this volume you will find all 13 chapters. In this practice manual, you'll find all 13 chapters and all homework questions I have grouped either under the respective chapters. And those case studies which are based on more than one chapter, because there are case studies which includes 2-3 chapters or 2-3 different concepts. Those case studies I have put under 13th chapter of practice manual. So in practice manual index, you'll find chapter 1 to 13. Is that clear? This you don't have to bring to the classroom because this is for you to practice at home. Practice manual contains questions along with detailed answers. It contains questions along with detailed answers chapter wise. This is for you to practice. And these 2 volumes we will be dealing with in the classroom. Something more. If you trust me, you should. No option. But then I am a trustworthy person, right? I've been teaching, as I told you, since a very long time now. I have covered each and everything given in the module. It means it's a complete substitution of your module. You can keep your module up on the shelf. If you trust me. Otherwise, you can open the module, you can compare it. See, you have to keep on verifying. See, we are in the auditing profession. You have to check whether what I'm saying is truth or not. You can do that. Absolutely no problem. And you will be doing it, I know. So, CA final students are deemed chartered accountants. So, you can do it. Everything covered in the module is covered in these 3 volumes. Don't worry. So, you don't have to touch it if you wish to. Because this question keeps coming. Sir, whether that module is enough, what notes you have given, whether it is enough or we have to refer that module. Actually, you don't have to because everything is covered here. Everything is covered here. On the contrary, the coverage in these notes is double the module. It is 200% than what is covered in the module. How come? So let me explain a little bit. First of all, entire module is covered. However, the coverage of practical questions is still very low in the institute's literature. Practical questions are not covered much in the institute's literature. So I was worried about it because it's a practical subject. And if you refer the module, you'll find it's only theory, theory and theory. If you refer the module, first of all, nobody touches the module. That is a different issue. But if you happen to read the module, you'll find it's only theory. Practical questions are very, very few. So being a practical subject, what I had to do? Using my past experience of teaching under the old syllabus also, what I did? I have borrowed the questions from old syllabus. I have modified these questions. Naturally, I have picked up only those questions which can fit into these chapters, not all questions. The questions which are relevant with the new syllabus, only those questions I have borrowed. Somewhere I have modified those questions. Somewhere I have created my own examples and I have put them in either volume 1, 2 or practice manual, that is volume 3. So I have also covered this. So relevant part of old syllabus is also covered it, only relevant part, plus entire module of new syllabus. Therefore, I said the coverage in the classroom will be 200% than what is covered by institute. So you can be rest assured, you can depend on me and depend on this printed literature. Everything is covered. Only future updations you'll have to do either using institute's website or our website, right? Through new RTPs, new exams which will keep coming up. Nobody can stop that. So be rest assured about it. Everything word by word, everything will be covered in detail. Right. Now in our daily lecture, we'll have around 10 minutes break in between. Generally after first 1.5 hours, we'll take a small break of 10 minutes so you can freshen up and come back. That will be our daily practice. And one sincere request that your mobile should be in a silent mode and should be kept in the bag so that they don't vibrate. Don't keep it on the shelf. You are likely to forget. Right? I also do that the moment I enter the classroom. So please follow that much discipline. You give me your 100% cooperation, I'll give you 200%. That's for sure. That's for sure. Is this clear? Division of 3 volumes. This volume you can keep at home. And these are the 2 volumes we'll deal. Now, while teaching, I may change the sequence slightly. So I'll come to it. Why and how I will change the sequence. One more thing got reminded to me. If you have seen the institute's vision and mission statement, if you happen to see, our institute has also issued a vision and mission statement, and that vision and mission statement will come in your syllabus also. Yeah, in your strategic cost management also it will come. In the vision and mission statement, institute wish you to become global financial professionals, not local financial professionals. Globally recognized and acclaimed financial professionals. So institute has done internationalization of your syllabus. Yes. It means when you start looking at the module, you'll find lot many new terms and lot many things are ready-made or borrowed from foreign author books. They have given the reference there because they must have taken the permission also. The institute doing it, not we. So they must have asked the permission. So you'll find ready-made paragraphs, points are borrowed from foreign authors, and they have referred probably so many foreign authors books and they've copy pasted in the module just to make you or give you a global touch. That is so far so good. But if really someone wants to study only from module, then they have to buy a dictionary, good dictionary also. Because to understand that foreign English, though we speak in English only, but Indian English is different and foreign English is different. So it's little difficult sometimes to understand that language and their wordings. So you have to sit with the dictionary if really someone wants to study from the module itself. Our job as a teacher is to simplify all this. So we have to study it twice, thrice, try to find out some examples, simplify and then give it to you. Now, due to this, what has happened? Due to internationalization of syllabus, institute has made one more assumption for CA final students, that as you have come to CA final after passing intermediate, naturally that is the expectation of the institute. But the expectation doesn't stop there. Institute expects that everything you did in intermediate you still remember. Means it is in the safe hard disk here in your CPU. That is what is institute's assumption. And therefore when you open the chapter of marginal costing, first of all, is it visible marginal costing anywhere? Standard costing is visible. Is marginal costing visible? Which chapter it could be? Can you guess? Right, absolutely right. Decision making. Decision making is the name of the chapter. Basically it is marginal costing, because marginal costing is a technique used for decision making. All of you are aware of that. Budgetary control is also there. These three chapters were there in intermediate. Marginal costing means decision making, standard costing, budgetary control in intermediate syllabus at the end as an introduction to marginal costing. If you see carefully, it was just introduction to marginal costing, introduction to standard costing and introduction to budgetary control. Me being a teacher, I have seen lot many intermediate students keep these chapters for option. I have seen students say that let us keep it for option. But I hope you have not kept it for option, right? You have studied them and you still remember. This is institute's expectation. And if you open these chapters, they start from somewhere else. There is no connectivity. They directly go to international level. When they start with this standard costing, marginal costing chapters, you can see that by opening up the module from where they begin. So there is a gap between what you covered in intermediate and where you left that chapter, and from where you start CA final. There is a gap in between, and there is no connection. Plus we have forgotten what we had studied at intermediate. That adds to the problem. This is what the way institute works. Now me as a teacher standing here, I cannot do like this. If I start standard costing, just I'm giving example, don't take it hard. If I start standard costing and start telling you ex ante and ex post standard, what did you understand? Or what you have understood now? Ex ante, ex post standard. This is the first page of standard costing. So they start from anywhere. Now I cannot teach like that. Meaning why my coverage in my study material is exhaustive and detailed. Reason, I'll take you standard costing from beginning, from zero level. First we'll have to revise, brush up what you had done at intermediate, and then I'll have to take you to CA final and international level. That is a teacher's job, which is not there in the study material. Simple questions are not there on standard costing. They directly start from somewhere else. But it is difficult to form a connectivity then. Marginal costing also they start from somewhere else. Budgetary control something else. Budgetary control purely theory chapter. Can you believe? Budgetary control, pure theory in institute's literature. Whereas you have been solving practical questions of preparation of budget. So I have to bridge that gap so that you can understand it better. So I'll be starting from scratch. I'll start marginal costing also from scratch. Basic formulas, basic questions, then we'll graduate to CA final level. Right? This is the way we will be going in the classroom so that understanding is full. Right? Nothing is left out. No gaps are left out in between. And therefore I said the coverage in the classroom notes is 200% than what is covered in the module. You have to trust me, you have to be regular, that's all. Irrespective of weather condition outside, be regular, be punctual as far as possible. Even if you are late due to whatever genuine reason, please get in. Doesn't matter if you are late due to, because you may get stuck up somewhere in the traffic or whatever due to office assignments. Don't shy to enter the running class. You may get in. So it is better to have something than missing the whole lecture. Something is better than nothing. So I don't have a problem, but don't make it a habit. I'm giving you this flexibility to enter the classroom anytime, right? If you are late by genuine reasons, please get in. But try to be regular. If you are regular and if you pay 100% attention, I can guarantee you, you will understand this subject for lifetime. So I need your attendance as well as attention, both. Attendance and attention both. You give me only these two things. The rest you leave it to me. The rest I will manage. And then you will never feel anything difficult about this subject if I get this cooperation. So this how we'll proceed. Now I said I may not teach in the same sequence. I have kept the notes in the same sequence, but I may not teach in the same sequence. Reason, institute has not kept these chapters in a logical sequence. There is generally a connectivity between one chapter and another one. So on the basis of understanding of one topic, you will understand next topic. They have not done this. They have put all these chapters at random. Now how I will be following the sequence? So let me tell you, I'll start with volume 1 first. In volume 1, I will start from decision making, from here. Means marginal costing. Because this is the base chapter. This is the base topic which will have impact on all other chapters. Everywhere you will find connection with marginal costing, basic techniques and assumptions. With this, all topics are connected. So I will start with this. This is going to consume a lot of time because this is the biggest one. Biggest chapter in our entire study material or notes. After this, I will go to pricing decision. Here also we will have to use decision making concepts, marginal costing concepts. After pricing decision, then I will take you to chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the sequence we'll cover volume 1. Once we shift to volume 2, I'll tell you the sequence of volume 2 also. But again, volume 2 sequence will be different, but it will be logical sequence in which I'll teach. Is that clear? So we'll be starting with this. Today's homework is very simple one. First of all, you should have your Fullscape notebooks, fair notebook. College days have gone. One notebook, multiple subjects, everything in the same notebook, and still few pages are left blank. Even after, at the end of the year, even 200 pages notebook is not full, right? Here you will at least need 2-3 notebooks of 200 pages. In your notebook, first of all, you will write your name, mobile number. Reason? If you happen to forget it here, we can trace out it belongs to whom and we can call you and give it to you. Or if you give it to your friend who was absent, he can return it back to you. So, and generally in majority of the notebooks, first page is index. Right? On that index page also we'll be writing something. From next page, leaving the first page for index. Whether index is pre-printed or not. Otherwise you leave first page for index. I'll tell you how to use that page. From second page onwards you'll start writing. From second page onwards, first of all you will give page numbers today at home. That is your today's homework. You will assign page numbers to notebook. Printed notes we have assigned the page numbers. Notebook you will assign the page number 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Why so? Let me tell you. Suppose in the classroom I am solving a question. I am solving question number 29. My habit is to write question number oblique page number. Suppose this question belongs to page number 50, just for example's sake. So on the board I will be writing question 29/50 and then I will start developing the solution. Naturally, when you will write it in your notebook, you will write this reference question 29/50 and then you will also start writing the solution. Now, the page number of your notebook, suppose the notebook page number is 110, the numbers which you will give today at home. Suppose this answer you are writing on notebook page number 110, you will put that 110 page number next to the question where question 29 is printed in printed notes. So near the question you will put the page number of your notebook, means reference of answer, and at answer you will give the question, reference of question. Don't you think this will help you when you will start revising the subject before the exam? Because questions are at one place, answers are at different place. How do you match them? You'll keep turning the pages and searching. So you should be able to move from either question to answer or answer to question. And this we have learned from accounting only. See, in journal entries, when we used to make, there was a column called ledger folio. So journal entries posted into the ledger. But in 11th, 12th, nobody has taught us what to write there. It was a blank column, LF. That was blank when we studied through the same system. Actually, that journal entry is to be posted on that ledger folio, page number. So for auditor, he can go directly to that ledger and check the entry being posted in the proper ledger. From there, the system has emerged. So at question, answers number, page number, and at answer, questions number. This will save lot of time later on. Then one more request. Whenever you finish with notebook number 1 and you start notebook 2, give consecutive numbering. It means in notebook 2 again don't give page number 1. Suppose in notebook 1 you have given page numbers 1 to, let us say, 190. We say 200 pages notebook, but there are no 200 pages actually. So suppose we start giving the numbers and you end up at 190, suppose, in notebook number 1. When you begin with notebook number 2, you will start giving number 191, consecutive numbering, so that there is no confusion. Otherwise, notebook page number 12, this 12 number page is in 3 notebooks. Possible? Then you'll have to write page number 12, notebook number 1, page number 12, notebook number 2. Why to do that? Give consecutive numbering. Right? So this is today's homework, giving page number to your notebook. Right? With this, we will begin. I'm starting with this chapter. But even before starting with this chapter, that is marginal costing, I will quickly take you through intermediate basics of costing. So what I am going to deal with for next 1 hour and so probably, till the time we finish that basic revision, nothing new I will be teaching you. Nothing new. I'm even not touching this chapter now. I'm not touching this chapter. I'll start with the word cost. And I will start with the word costing, which is not required. You know all this. I know it. But still we will quickly take a review or revision of intermediate, so that whenever we use these terms later on, you should be comfortable. So no new learning, but quick revision. You may call it as dusting, because over a period of time, as the time passes, the dust gets settled on what we had studied. So we'll dust it out, we'll make it afresh, and we'll have to build up the story of CA final on the foundation of your intermediate knowledge. Please don't forget that. And I hope you have not thrown or sold off your intermediate notes and notebooks to Raddiwala. I hope so. If you have done that, please give double money and take it back. Because at some of the places you may have to refer your intermediate notes given in the classes or institute's literature notebook. It will be helpful. But preserve them till the time you become chartered accountant, till the time you clear your entire exam. Then you can throw it off, no problem. So at some places we'll need. Anyway, I'll be explaining it in the classroom. Wherever required, I'll be giving you the reference of intermediate. We'll be quickly brushing up that intermediate knowledge or concept, and then we will move to CA final. And that's why we are going to take little more time also in the classroom. And therefore we should be at comfort. We should have that sufficient time to cover everything in detail. So I am now taking you to basics of costing. We'll start with the word cost, right? We'll begin with the word cost. I want from you the meaning of the word cost, whatever you feel. Whatever you feel about the word cost. May not be a bookish definition, don't worry. And whenever I am covering these basics, if anybody is interested, you can note it down in your notebook. This is optional. What to write from the board is your choice, right? From my side, there is no compulsion. Let us define the word cost, or your opinion about the cost. Yes? Go ahead. Outflow of resources is one definition. Do not worry. Be frank. Be frank. Learning is a continuous process. Even we are learning. In the process of teaching, we keep learning a lot. Don't worry. Don't hesitate. Very good. Expenses incurred to achieve some objective. Whatever comes to your mind about the word cost. Value of goods and services, okay? Input. Do you want to say input resources? Okay. That's all? No problem. You have collectively given the correct answer, right? Now I'll write the bookish definition, right, of cost. Cost is the monetary value of all sacrifices made to achieve an objective. Don't worry, you don't have to remember it by heart. We are just revising the intermediate. First of all, cost is always expressed in money value, monetary value. See, the company, this is Camlin company who manufactured this marker pen. They must have incurred some cost in manufacturing this pen, and they will express this cost in rupees, means money value. Let us assume it is rupees 25 is their cost of manufacture. So cost is always expressed in money value, common denominator in money value. It is monetary value of all sacrifices made. I'll come to this word little later in detail. Now what are those sacrifices? Meaning, in order to manufacture and sell this pen, whatever sacrifices are made, somebody said inputs, correct? Those sacrifices are nothing but different inputs which produce this output. Those inputs are sacrifices. We'll give it a technical name now after some time. So I'll go into little detail little later for sacrifices. So whatever sacrifices you have made to manufacture and sell this pen, you make a list of these sacrifices and convert those sacrifices into its money value. Convert these sacrifices into money value. Assign the monetary value to that sacrifice. Take the total of sacrifices made to achieve that objective. Now here I have written a word to made to achieve an objective. Here the objective is to manufacture and sell the pen is my objective. To achieve that objective, whatever sacrifices I have made, convert it into money value, add up them, you'll get the cost of this objective. Objective is to manufacture and sell the pen is my objective. Your objective is to become chartered accountant. No problem. That is your objective. Now you want to calculate cost of becoming a chartered accountant. Naturally, you should, and you might have been doing it. So to achieve your objective, whatever sacrifices you have made, convert those sacrifices into money value, add up them, and you will get cost of becoming chartered accountant. Some of the sacrifices are already in monetary terms, like institute fees which you will pay. is already in money terms. You don't have to convert it. The fees for attending lectures or classes, it's already in money value. But then all sacrifices may not be in money value, so you'll have to convert them. Like you are using vehicle to come here and go. You are spending your time, right? Precious time. So that you have to convert in money value. So some sacrifices are already in money value. If they are not, you have to convert them in money value. Make a list, add them together. You will get cost of becoming a chartered accountant, means cost of achieving that objective. Generally, from industry angle or from classroom angle, our objective is either to manufacture goods or to provide services from classroom discussion angle. So, angle of our objective from industry angle or classroom angle is manufacture of goods or providing services. This is our objective. So either you want to calculate cost of manufacture, if that is your objective, or you want to calculate cost of providing services. Like what I am doing now in teaching in the classroom, I am providing you a service. It's a service industry, teaching. In order to provide this service, whatever sacrifices this academy is making, that we have to calculate. Then we will get cost of providing service to the student, teaching service to the student. That is what we are interested in. So that will be our objective. Objective of this company manufacturing pen will be cost per marker pen and so on. So objective could be either to calculate cost of goods or cost of services is an objective. Now to achieve this objective, some sacrifices are made, and I said I will discuss little more on sacrifices. These sacrifices are popularly called as elements of cost. This is the technically correct word, elements of cost. In the definition, the word sacrifices written, but these sacrifices are better known as elements of cost. And there are 3 elements of cost. I'll write it here. There are 3 elements of cost. It means whether you manufacture goods or whether you provide services, the sacrifices made are generally grouped in 3 parts. And you know that. The first sacrifice we call as material cost. First element of cost, material cost. Second, you are aware, labor cost, also called as employee cost. Third, overheads. Everyone? Very good. So what you said is right, but technically it is expenses. I have not written the word overheads. I'll come to it. What you said is right, not wrong. But technically correct word is expenses instead of overheads. I'll come to overheads a little later, just in few minutes. These are the 3 sacrifices which are made to achieve the objective. Now while giving the example, majority time I'll be giving the example of a manufacturing industry, means manufacture of goods. So in manufacture of goods, how these costs are incurred? 3 costs or 3 sacrifices are incurred. Let us try to imagine and understand and brush up. Suppose we are a company which manufactures furniture. So these desk benches are to be manufactured. Let us say our objective is to manufacture these desk benches for classroom. So our objective is to manufacture desk bench and supply it to a coaching institute. Okay. Now we want to ascertain cost of manufacture of desk bench. To manufacture this desk bench, what is the material cost incurred? You are aware of. Only I'll define it. Material cost is the monetary value of all tangible items. Material cost is monetary value naturally of tangible items having physical substance getting consumed in the process of manufacture. Getting consumed, I said. Mind that word, consumed. Later on I'll stress on this word later on. So all tangible items having physical substance getting consumed in the process of manufacture, all these items if converted into money value will become material cost. And when I said what cost we will incur material cost, so naturally you have started imagining plywood, Sanmica, Fevicol, right? The steel frame which is there, paint, and that putty bottom, that side putty, what is called, right? So that there is no rough surface. All these whatever items, nails and so many things are required. All physical items getting consumed in the process of manufacture is material cost. This is first sacrifice. Second sacrifice is employee cost, that is manpower cost. Correct word is manpower cost. We call it as labor cost. Now, though the popular word is labor cost, please treat it as manpower cost. That word has better meaning. Because the moment I utter the word labor, a scenario comes in your front of your eyes that a blackish fellow sweating a lot, digging along the roadside, labor. That's not just a labor cost. Means that person is called labor. Even managing director's salary will fall in the category of labor cost only. You will say managing director is not a labor, but in costing we call it as labor cost. Actually the correct meaning is manpower cost. For human resources, whatever you pay, whatever you pay to human resources is covered under labor cost. Even my remuneration which I get from academy will fall in the category of labor cost. So it's a manpower cost. And generally we call it as salaries and wages which we give. See, we use their efforts, we use the time of human beings and we remunerate them in the form of, we compensate in the form of salaries, wages, perquisites, incentives and so on. So whatever we pay, monetarily we pay for getting their services of manpower, that is all covered in labor. Second sacrifice. Now, anything means any other sacrifice, means any other cost which cannot be grouped in these two automatically falls in third category. It is balancing figure. You imagine any industry and you imagine any cost which is incurred in that industry. And if that cost is not falling in the category of material and labor, means automatically it will go in the category of expenses. Let's take an example. Suppose we'll imagine the cost incurred in this coaching institution. Cost incurred for this coaching institution, to run the coaching institution. This electricity bill which the academy will pay, will it go in material or labor? No, it means it will go to expenses. Electricity bill I am saying. Suppose we are paying rent for this classroom. It's neither material nor labor, then expenses. Depreciation of equipments. Equipments could be mic, could be projector. Depreciation of these desk benches, depreciation of laptops, depreciation of AC, all equipments. Depreciation of equipment, will it go to material, labor? It will go to expenses. Depreciation. And here I will come to the point. Depreciation of, let us say, assets, fixed assets. Now fixed assets are physical items, tangible items having physical substance. And earlier I said tangible items having physical substance getting consumed in the process of manufacture goes in the category of material. So why not this desk bench and AC and projector should go in material? Why should come here? They are also tangible items having physical substance. And here one important word comes. Earlier I said getting consumed in the process of manufacture. And this desk bench and assets are not getting consumed, they are used. There is a difference between consumed and used. Assets are used. And towards usage we charge depreciation. Depreciation is charged for usage, for wear and tear. So depreciation don't go to material cost, it goes to expenses. It is for use of asset. And here what goes is what gets consumed in the process. And therefore I had told you, consumed, used. Words are different. Both are tangible items. One is getting consumed, one is getting used. So in the process of teaching, these marker pens will get consumed. Why? I will need one box of marker pen. This marker pen goes on for few days only. It gets exhausted. So I have to buy boxes of marker pen. So marker pen gets consumed. Dusters also get consumed, it wears out, but this whiteboard will be used. I hope you are getting the difference. Whiteboard will be used, so I will charge depreciation and include it here. Marker pen, duster cost I will charge here because these will get consumed. That is also a tangible item. Even to run this mic, right, we need a pencil cell. Those batteries will get consumed, but the amplifier system is used, so we have to charge depreciation for using amplifier, but batteries will get consumed. Battery cost I will include here. I hope the difference is clear. So this is expenses which is not covered here, goes in the category of expenses. I'll take you further. So material, labor, expenses clear. Now material cost further gets divided in two parts: direct material, indirect material. First we splitted the cost in three parts: material, labor, expenses. Now we are further splitting or bifurcating each cost into two parts: direct cost, indirect cost. Labor cost is called direct labor plus indirect labor. Expenses, direct expenses plus indirect expenses. So each cost is further categorized in two parts: direct, indirect, direct, indirect. Now, total of these three costs, that is material plus labor plus expenses, is called total cost, because total cost is divided in three parts, three elements of cost, three sacrifices. Now I'll go this way: direct material plus direct labor plus direct expenses is called, tell me, yeah, very good, prime cost. Prime cost is another word used for direct cost. All direct cost together is called prime cost, and all indirect cost together, is called overheads. Here we come. Overheads is here. This is how it is. So overheads is the word given for indirect cost. And therefore in cost sheet we say prime cost plus overheads is equal to total cost. If you remember the cost sheet is nothing but prime cost plus overheads is your total cost. So overheads consists of all indirect cost. The substitute word is indirect cost. All direct cost is called prime cost, and prime cost plus overheads becomes your total cost. Now how to divide the cost between direct and indirect? What should be the criteria? So there is no list that this is the direct cost and this list is indirect cost. There is no such list. There is a logic, there is a criteria to split the cost in two parts, direct and indirect, based on a logic. And that logic is very simple. If the cost which you are incurring is directly attributable to cost object, so I have uttered one new word. It's not new for you. Cost object. Then such cost will be called as direct cost. I'll come to the cost object, don't worry. I'll come to that word. And if the cost is not directly attributable to cost object, then we call that cost as indirect cost. So let's come to the word first, cost object. In simple language, cost object could be these two only. Either it is goods or services. Nothing. Cost object is either goods or services. From where this word has come and how to remember? See, we generally want to calculate cost of goods or services. So our objective is to calculate cost. Objective is to calculate cost of goods or services. Whose cost you want to ascertain, that is called cost object. If my objective is to ascertain cost of marker pen, this is my cost object. If my objective is to ascertain the cost of this projector, because I have manufactured the projector, then my cost object is projector. If my objective is to ascertain the cost of this desk bench, then desk bench is my cost object. And if my objective is to ascertain cost per student, then a student is my cost object. Clear? Whose cost you want to ascertain is your cost object. Now I'll come back again. If there is a direct relationship between the cost which I am incurring with the cost object, means you can identify this cost is incurred for this. If this relationship can be formed logically, comfortably, then all such cost will be called direct cost. It could be material, it could be labor, it could be expenses, but there should be a clear-cut association of cost with cost object then direct. If there is no clear association, but cost is incurred for cost object only, but there is no one-to-one relationship. There is no one-to-one relationship, but cost is incurred for this only. Then we call such cost as indirect cost, because there is an indirect relationship. I'll simplify a little more. This direct cost is nothing but specific cost. Specific to cost object, where you can form one-to-one relationship. So specific cost, direct cost, prime cost is one and the same. Common cost, common, I am using the word common cost for indirect cost, is overheads. Common cost is overheads. Because sometimes students ask, indirect cost means cost is not incurred for this? No, cost is incurred for this only. Only there is no one-to-one relationship. So common cost is overheads. Specific cost is direct cost. Let's take an example. Your objective is to become chartered accountant, which I said earlier, and it's a fact. The fees which you paid to the institute, the fees which you paid for attending the classes, the direct cost for becoming chartered accountant, because it's clear-cut attributable to this. But you are using a two-wheeler, and suppose that two-wheeler is used by other family members also, not only by you. Now what cost we incur on two-wheeler? See, depreciation of two-wheeler, taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, and naturally petrol, oil. This is the cost which we incur on using that vehicle. Is all the cost incurred on that vehicle is chargeable to your becoming CA? No. Why? Because that vehicle is commonly used by so many members in the family, including you. You are also using it to come here. It means the cost of that vehicle, cost of using that vehicle, not capital cost of the vehicle, cost of using the vehicle is overheads, because it is common cost. So you have to take some share out of common cost, because it is common, it is not incurred only for one. And that taking the appropriate share out of common cost and charging it to cost object, this in intermediate was called as absorption of overheads. Remember that word. When we used to say absorb the overheads means what? Nothing great. Absorption of overheads means out of common cost, try to find out logically some share of overheads to be charged to that cost object. That is what is charging of overheads, known as absorption of overheads, known as overheads applied, overheads absorbed, overheads charged, overheads recovered. All this means one and the same. That is finding out the common share out of, appropriate share out of common cost. That is overheads. If we take again the example of this academy, direct material cost for you people, which I can attribute, let us say, 1/1 basis, and my cost object is, let us say, a student. So let us define the cost object, because cost object can be one student also, can be a batch also. It is how I want to calculate the cost. Suppose I decide the cost object as each student. So you have to think from that angle now. Which cost is attributable to each student? That for me will be direct cost, remaining will be indirect cost. So we'll go for material. Direct material, cost object one student. The printed notes which will be given to you, because it will be delivered to each one of you. Suppose the printing cost of these 3 volumes is, let us say, 1000 rupees, just for the sake of simplicity, that the set of 3 volumes, the cost of printing is 1000. I can very easily say per student I am spending 1000, so that will be direct material cost for me. But this marker pen which will get consumed, duster will get consumed, can I correlate how much pen is used for each student? No, but it is a material cost, so that will go to indirect material. Marker pen, duster, batteries will go to Indirect material, because it is commonly incurred for all of you. I cannot associate per student this much, not possible. So it will be indirect. Let's go to labor cost for again academy, so that you can imagine it better. Suppose I have been paid by the academy on per student basis. If my remuneration depends upon X per student into number of students, then for academy, my remuneration will become direct labor cost, because it is based on each student, directly attributable to cost object. What about office staff salary, non-teaching staff salary? That is also labor cost, non-teaching staff I am saying. So their salaries, wages, remuneration will go to the category of indirect labor. Simple. It's logical thinking. Therefore I said we don't have to remember it. You have to remember the logic behind it. It doesn't make much difference. It is management's choice which cost to be clubbed as direct and which is to be clubbed as indirect by applying a judgment. Now, expenses. Expenses are such that majority of expenses fall in the category of indirect. Majority. Imagine an expense which is directly attributable to cost object. Imagine. Expense. It should not be material, it should not be labor. We had taken the example of electricity, rent, depreciation. You will notice all these expenses are indirect. Actually, expenses majoritarily tends to be indirect. 99% and above. Expenses tends to be indirect. Does it mean there are no direct expense at all? No. But they are very, very few. Very few. We'll take some examples. But generally expenses go to the category of indirect because they by nature are common. Now suppose that I have taken this classroom on rent, assume, and the owner of the classroom is charging me the rent on per student basis. That pay us 2000 per student in the form of rent. That rent for me will become direct expense. If they charge me like this, there are at some places they charge like on per student basis. Or tomorrow MACB, electricity board, starts charging the electricity bill based on per student. It may become direct anyway, but this is not a reality. We will take some real life examples. Generally, royalty paid on production for using patents and copyrights, and if that royalty is paid on per unit basis, per unit X rupees to be paid as a royalty, I think it will become direct expense, correct? Because royalty paid is neither material nor labor. It is a charge towards using intellectual property right. So it is an expense. Charge for using intellectual property right. That is an asset, intangible asset you are using, and you are paying a charge. But it is based on per unit. So it will become direct expense. Sometimes, this is one example I gave. Let us take another example. Suppose I have received an order to manufacture these desk benches. So the entire desk bench, suppose 25 desk benches we have to supply to a coaching institute. This is called as job, if you remember. The work which we receive from customer is called job, which leads to job costing. I'll come to job costing little later after the break. But for this job of manufacture of desk bench, first I have to get the desk bench designed. Don't you think before manufacture of any product it has to be designed? What will be the length, what will be the weight, what will be the height, everything has to be first specified. And suppose I don't have a designer with me as an employee. So I have hired a professional person who has given me the designs, and I have selected one of the designs out of which he provided. And I have to pay a charge to him for his professional service of giving this design. And this design will be used only for this work, not for other work. I think that will become direct expense. Professional fees paid. Please remember, it won't come labor, because labor has to be your employee. It's an outside agency to whom you are paying the service charges, neither material nor labor. It's a professional fees paid to an outsider and getting that design only for this work, only for this job. If that design I am going to use for 10 jobs, then it will become overheads because it will become common cost. This cost is only for this work, then it will be direct. Let's take one more example. Job work charges. Here the meaning of job work is different. Job work charges means subletting, subcontracting. For example, that I have manufactured those plywood Sanmaikas, means top and bottom of the bench, and I have fabricated the steel frame. Now we have to attach them, that is called assembly. This top and bottom of plywood has to be attached to that steel frame. Suppose this assembly work I have outsourced to some other agency. I told them that this everything is ready now. You have to assemble, do the paint and deliver it here. That work I have outsourced, for which I have paid X amount to an outside agency for getting part of the work done. It's a specific payment for this work, which is neither material nor labor, it is expense. That agency to whom I have given the work may incur some material labor. I have to just pay X amount and everything will be done for me. Are you getting the difference? I have done outsourcing, that agency will incur some material cost, some labor cost, some expenses, and some they will earn as profit from me. I am paying X amount and getting that work of assembling done. So I am paying those charges will come here and it is directly attributable to this order. So it will be a direct expense. Just few examples I tried to give so that you can start imagining. But majoritarily expenses go to the category of indirect. Due to this, what has happened? As expenses are majoritarily indirect, what has happened? People have forgotten this item. People have struck it out. And if you remember, intermediate cost sheet, we used to call material plus labor as prime cost. If you remember, plus overheads, total cost. Overheads naturally 3 overheads, which I'll come later. Factory overheads, administration, selling, distribution. I'll come little later. For the time being, assume these overheads include all 3. Factory, administration and selling, distribution. We used to generally say material plus labor is prime cost plus overheads is total cost. Now see how it has come. When we used to utter material, my dear friends, it was direct material. People don't write the word direct. So when we say material cost, mind well, it is this material, not this. Why? This has gone in overheads. So when we say material cost, it was this. When we used to say labor cost in the cost sheet, it was this. And these two used to form prime cost because this item comes very rarely. However, if this item is there, we used to write direct expenses to get the prime cost. But you will notice 90% cases, this item didn't used to appear in the cost sheet. So we used to directly say material plus labor is prime cost. And then plus overheads. 3 types of overheads, and then we used to get total cost. In overheads comes these 3. So that is how we used to prepare the cost sheet in intermediate. Okay. Here onwards, we'll go into little more details. We'll go to the details of overheads also. We'll go to the methods of costing also. But I think we'll take a small break of 10 minutes now at this stage, and then we'll continue after 10 minutes. Okay.